Now this is pretty weird, isn't it? I am recording a video. I'm not writing a tweet or writing an article or making a podcast. If you've heard me on the Frantic Football podcast through World Football Index, check it out if you haven't. Getting out of my element a little bit and trying something new. So I'm going to record a video just talking through kind of some of the ways that I find players in different leagues. I think I've written a couple of articles where I kind of go through one of the methods I use, and I'll kind of show that. And I want to just kind of share a little process in, a video as opposed to an article, that I can kind of talk through things as well as actually show them. I'll be in my code files, but the point of this video isn't for me to show you my code, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to run through every line of code. I would need to clean up my code beyond belief for that. Some of these things, the first thing that I'll show you, I coded when I didn't really know how to code very well, and it's very gross. So I don't necessarily want to share that like publicly. I'm going to share it on my video, but I don't want to put that out to the public right now, just because like it's not that great. But maybe in the future I will. I think it's good for both FBref and Wyscout data. So you can see I'm going to be going into Wyscout stuff right now. I'll be going to China League 1. This is the second tier of the Chinese football system, the football league system. And I started getting into this league a little bit last week before, something like that. It's fun. There's a lot of young players that I find interesting. It's not like we have to be realistic. And that's one thing that I think I should say in a video that I've probably tweeted before, but I do have to be realistic. I like a lot of leagues that the players, if I'm like, this is a really good player in this league, the caveat too is it's not like that league, the best players can just move to the Premier League, right? The best players in most leagues cannot move to the Premier League. They cannot move to La Liga. So the caveat is the reason why I want to kind of dig into some players on this video in China League 1 is I'm curious, can any maybe make the jump to the Super League next season? So the Chinese Super League, maybe if they get promoted with their teams, do they think they'll do well? Or maybe will they potentially get bought by a Chinese Super League team? And so for that, I'm going to look at U25 players because I think that those are players that are either young and developing or they're just at the end of the developing arc right before prime, that if they're doing well as a developing player, then maybe they will be bought by a Super League team. The average ages of a lot of Super League teams do tend to be sometimes a bit higher, so they are going to want players more in their prime than very young. China League 1, I've noticed, probably has younger players more frequently that are playing big parts in for their team. You see, here's the table. I don't like the Wyscout table, but I'm on Wyscout right now, so I'm going to show it. But you can see here's our table. They've all played 14 matches. You can see here's the points. So we got, a top, several, however many. One team that hasn't won anything. Great. Here's Guangzhou FC, right? I think a lot of people know them. They've had some, much like every Chinese club, basically, they've had some issues recently. So they are lower mid-table right now, 16 points. I think the last couple of spots of relegation. So I don't think they're going to be relegated. But yeah, they're low table. So got a drink from my Harry Kane mug. Coffee's just so much better when it comes from a mug with like 50 Harry Kane faces from his amazing 39 goals of 2017 calendar year. Best player ever, right? So let's just get started. So basically the first thing, this is actually something that I've shared in one of my articles. I think I wrote one about that I explained the method more in the Segunda División in Spain, and then I did Series C in Italy. I did like a big, let's find like 30 some odd players, similar to that. So basically, I use Z-scores to filter players out. So I cast a wide net with a lot of different metrics. You can see here, I cast a wide net, and I filter out using Z-scores. So this is minus 0.5 standard deviations below the mean. And then this is the mean, and then also this is 0.33 standard deviations above the mean. So I won't go too far into detail. I actually am re-recording this video because the first video I recorded, I went into a 7-minute long tangent about what Z-scores were in distributions, and I don't want to do that. And I don't think it's important for this video. So Google Z-scores and standard deviations if you want to learn more. But basically, it's a way to, it's kind of like percentiles. If you think about it, percentiles and Z-scores are somewhat similar. I just happen to use Z-scores for this because I like them more. So I want to look at U25. I'll start with central and attacking midfielders that have played at least 40% of the season so far. I mean, 40%, that's going to be a relatively low number of minutes because we've only been 14. So it's not even 7 full 90s. It's some, I don't know, maybe 6 full 90s. You can still have players that might perform poorly or very well, that it's because of variance. Because I think 900 minutes is really when you start to see all the, the trends of stuff kind of level out. So you might run into some players that might look really good in the data, but that's just because they have played every match the last 25 minutes, which isn't going to necessarily be fully representative of their true ability. But for these purposes, for casting a wide net, I like to cast as wide of a net as I can to get a good sample size. So central and attacking midfielders with at least 40% of the minutes, U25. And I'm going to look at smart passes, key passes, and shot assists. That's what I'm going to look at first. And the first metric I'll do is this third band, right? The minimum. So that's minus 0.5 standard deviations below the mean. They have to at least be, I'm going to call that passable. They have to be at least passable in smart passes, key passes, and shot assists. So basically I'm looking for like a playmaker. I'm looking for someone that might be pretty decent at, being a young playmaker. Smart passes is definitely like a style metric. So smart passes is a new one for people that don't know Wyscout data. Smart passes are attempted passes, not completed ones, but attempted passes that try to like break lines or create an attacking opportunity, something that is going to cause danger and stress for the opponent and try to create something for you and your teammates. So this to me is a style metric. It shows players that are more willing to take these risky passes and if they have a high percentage, like completion rate with that'd be not only are they trying, but they're able to. But just using smart passes per 90 is more of a style metric. Key passes are if they have created an attacking or shooting opportunity, but there is no shot. Shot assists are what they sound like. I have passed to you and you have taken a shot, so I have a shot assist. So basically, we're looking at playmakers, right? So let's take a look at how many U25 playmakers there are. There's just 3. So we have 37 total central and defensive midfielders that have played at least 40% of the minutes in China League 1 so far. And of those 37, 3 of them are at most 25 and are at least passable in these 3 metrics: smart passes, key passes, shot assists. So those 3 players, Osmanyan, I'll apologize when I pronounce names incorrectly. Well, I'll apologize now because I will be pronouncing these incorrectly. So Osmanyan, Wang Shichi, and Bugrahan Iskandar are our 3 players that show up with our initial filtering criteria. That's actually pretty small. That's probably about average for some leagues. You'll see when you're trying to find like maybe even 5, 6 players, you'll only come up with 2 or 3. That just means that there's only 3 players that are U25 meeting this criteria. But that's a decent sample size to work with right now. And I want to do a little bit more filtering. So we have those 3 players. So now I want to see, of those 3 players, how many remain when we say we don't want them to be passable. We want them to be at least average in these 3 metrics. 2 of them. So we have Wang Shichi and we have Iskandar. They're the ones that are at least average right now. So now I'm curious, can any of them be at least a bit above average in all 3? Okay, yes. So we have Wang Shichi and Iskandar are both central or attacking midfielders that are probably above average for playmaking. And this is not that like they're an inherent playmaker. Obviously, this is just data from Wyscout, and it's showing that on some key playmaking attributes, they have ranked at least above average in them. But now I'm curious. We can change this to 0.5 standard deviations above average, and they both show up again. So that means that they're both probably pretty good at all these. What about 1? So Wang Shichi shows up when you have 1 standard deviation above the mean for these 3 things. He's the only one that shows up. That is nice. So he is someone that we're going to put on our list. And just immediately, if you want, we can even just say, I want to put him on my list and do so. But then if we go back to, what was it, 0.5, I think, we have Iskandar as well. We found two players now that we have found that we want to put on our list. What if we want not necessarily this playmaking stuff, but we want to do maybe some progression? I want to look, and I'll start X2 this time. I want to find someone that's at least, that was already there. I want to find someone that's at least average at passes into the, that's third assist. Here we go. Passes to the final third. That's at least average in passes to the final third, progressive carries, and progressive passes. U25 central and attacking midfielders. And Wang Shichi. Okay, great. Well, what if I change that to central and defensive midfielders and not attacking? See, Wang Shichi should still show up because he is mainly a central midfielder. That's how my code works. It goes off the main position. This means he's played most of his minutes at right central midfielder, according to Wyscout. But he has still also played minutes at attacking midfielder. Central defensive, just him again. Great. So, wow. Okay, so he's going to be a playmaker and a progressive player. That tells me he probably is the real deal in terms of a quality young central midfielder, right? So that's just one way we could do it. Let's go to somewhere else. I like fullbacks. I used to be a fullback. And I went to play center back. This is all just with my friends because I played recreationally because I'm not good. I was only fast. I moved to center back so that I could beat people with pace every single time. And it was funny. So I want to find someone that is passable with fouls. So this is reverse coded. So I'm trying to find a U25 fullback that doesn't foul super often. So compared to the rest of the league, they might foul more than average, but just a little bit more than average at worst. And let's see, do I have defensive duels? Someone's going to be good with defensive duels, and I don't have to be phenomenal. I want them because they might be young, they might be learning, they might be physically smaller than some of the wingers or even that come inside to defend in a block, maybe some of the midfielders. So passable for both fouls and defensive duel win percentage. And I'm curious now, U25 fullbacks. Nice. That's not bad. How many fullbacks are there? That's wrong. Yeah, see, that's odd. So, because I typo there. You can see there's not 213 fullbacks. There's 213 players. So there's 40 fullbacks in the league. That's much better. I'm recording this live, as you can't tell. I won't edit that out because I make these mistakes all the time when I'm coding. I'm happy it happened now. But yeah, you can see there's a total of 6 U25 fullbacks with at least 40% of minutes played that are passable on like a defensive component. Great. Okay, well let's build that out a little bit. What if we also want them to be passable with progression? And I don't mean average. Let's just put it passable. All these things can be passable. That's one. UGA Wu, wingback or fullback. Let's put them on the list. I'm curious. There's no one else that is at least passable in some more defensive and attacking things. So, and when we take out fouls, because fouls could be due to the player, fouls could be due to the referee. So I like to include them at first, and I always like to not include them for something just because it's very possible that's nothing the player can control. Kao Shai Yi as well. 20s, 21, that's not bad. Oh, so left back. So there we go. We've left and right side covered if we want to make like, a sample 11 at any point. So then if we want to continue a little bit and say, let's try to filter these two to just find one that we want to add. I want to add both, but let's just continue playing with filters. We could do dribble success, deep completed crosses. You know what? Let's just do cross completion percent. And I want to do passable. The initial thing I want to do is passable. So I want to do this XX2, which would be 0. I would like to do that, but I'm curious if either of them fall out when I just say, can you be passable with your rate of completing crosses? The answer is yes. So Yuji Wu actually comes out. So you know what? If you can at least be passable with your crosses and China Elite 1, you're probably interesting in a lot of other ways, but for the purpose of this video, no. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So we have 3 different players to look at. And I think this stage we can move on to a next one. So again, I've wrote about this before. So if you want to read about this method, I'll link that article in the description of the video. We've come up with a list of a few players just in central midfield and as a fullback to look into. Another thing that I like to do to find players is I have role scores. So if you've seen me post before on Twitter, like the best 11 of, I think I posted the Baltic leagues, I posted like South America, I think U23 players as well. And as well as like who is the best shot stopping distributor in the league, who, like for a goalkeeper, who might be the best, advanced playmaker between, central and attacking midfielders. Those types of things, those are role scores. So I have weighted Z scores to create a specific like position role term. So we talk about advanced playmaker. An advanced playmaker is going to be someone that, they can make smart passes, or at least attempt smart passes, I should say, because they're going to try some risky passes. They're going to be decent with, expected assists with XA. They're going to have a little bit decent for that. Probably going to be pretty good at getting into spaces. So maybe received passes. And that's where you, the analyst, can come in and decide what metrics you want to include and weight them in a particular way. If you create role scores yourself, make sure that you first do them in a couple of leagues that you know well, so that you can eye test the results. I've done that in a lot of different leagues, and I like them. I won't go in detail about every single role and what the metrics are that I'm including and like their weightings, but basically you have roles, you have metrics, and you weight the Z scores to come up with a role score, is what I call it. So we're looking in China League 1, and you can kind of ignore this. Basically, contract expirations, you can ignore this as well. That just means I want all the rule scores that I've created. I want to calculate them for every single player in their positions. Max age of 25. Here's that 40% of minutes. And let's see what comes up. I'm going to show the top 50 players, the top 50 based on their role score. So just very quickly, we have the player, the team, age. This is the role score that they have for this particular role, or as I call it, a squad position. So a shot-stopping distributor, I think you can kind of visualize what that is. An advanced playmaker, a second striker, a number 6, a playmaking winger, ball-playing center back, dominant center back. Terms can sometimes be weird, but that's what I like. So I will continue with them. Basically, dominant center back can do stuff both on ball as well as defensively off the ball. Ball playing center back is weighted much higher for on-ball stuff like progression, pass success rate, stuff like that. The role rank is what rank they are within the league. So excluding what age they are. So it's all ages. So for instance, the shot-stopping distributor is all goalkeepers in the league that meet that 40% of the total minutes mark. And you can see this guy, Ruheng Ye, sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. He is the number 1 shot-stopping distributor in the league. And right behind him, too, Wang Shichi is the second shot-stopping distributor in the league. So you can see here, the number 1 advanced playmaker that we see in our data, which is U25, is, here we go, Wang Shichi, which we've just added to our list, right? He's the second highest role score for advanced playmaker in the league. So that means that the number 1 advanced playmaker in the league, based on my data, is above 25. So great. You can see the percent of minutes played. You can go, Wyscout's weird because they allow players to play, like they code all minutes in the game. So if a player plays 100 minutes in the game because there were 5 minutes of stoppage time at the end of each half, they get 100 minutes, but I want to see just pure 90s. So that's why you can get above 1 for this total percent of minutes played, or above 100, I should say. Great. Enough tangent, right? So let's just get into it. We can see all these players here, especially the first few that come up with some pretty high scores. Those are players that maybe we want to add to the list, especially these 2 goalkeepers. They're probably doing something. They probably have a high post-shot expected goals minus the goals scored. So basically prevented goals, I guess we could call it. So they're probably preventing goals at a high rate and are both involved in their team's buildup and are decent at passing, so like a short passing percentage. So basically that's some of the metrics that are involved with those weighted Z scores are preventing goals per 90, the percentage of passes that are short, how involved they are in build-up play, so like the short passes that they do play. I'm trying to see how they can play as a shot-stopping distributor. Advanced playmaker, we talked about that. And I think some of these also are going to kind of make sense when you see them. If not, feel free to ask in the comments. Another thing to call out, as I'm kind of just explaining, I guess, my code, right, is that players can score in different roles for their same position. Lee Da, you can see he comes up as the number one defensive center back. So basically, it's really focusing on defensive attributes, not in possession attributes. And Lee Da also shows up as the number one dominant center back, which, as I mentioned earlier, was both on ball and more defensive stuff as well. So that's an interesting guy. I would assume he's probably pretty good defensively, and that he might just not be that bad on the ball. He might be really good on the ball, but the fact that he doesn't show up extremely high for ball playing center back, yeah, I'm trying to look for him. Here he goes. So Lee Da is one of the worst ball playing center backs. He's number 16 for ball playing center back, which tells me he's okay on the ball, but he's a defensive guy. If you want a defensive player, maybe Lee Da is someone to look into because he's got very high scores, right? So that's kind of the process. Actually, as I'm explaining, the code, I'm also able to show you kind of that thought process I go through. I say, oh, Lee Da shows up twice really high. He's in the top 10 for two of the three center back roles that I've coded. I only have the three. I have defensive, dominant, and ball playing. He shows up extremely high for two of them, and the two that are much more defensive. But he's actually pretty low for the one that mainly focuses on on-ball stuff. That tells me he's either A, not heavily involved in build-up, or he might play in a very low possession team. I don't know if Yanbian Longding actually are a high or low possession team. I'll look at it in a second. But it tells me he's either not involved much on the ball, or he might not be that great on the ball. But because he scores extremely high, he's number one in the league for defensive and dominant center back. Dominant center back is a lot of defensive stuff while also some on-ball stuff. It tells me he's probably pretty average on ball, but very good defensively, right? And so we're going to look up Yanbian Longding just to see what they show up as from a possession side. So you can do that. You go to the rankings here. And this is actually the same process that I go through when I'm trying to find players. I have to look at a bunch of different things at different times just to see the thoughts that I'm having. Are those grounded in reality, or are they not backed up? So who are we looking for? 51.8% possession. They are number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. So they rank 7th in the league out of 16 for possession. So they have almost 50% possession per game, and they're like mid-table in terms of the possession table. So that tells me it's not that he's not able to play the ball much, is that he's probably either not involved in build-up very frequently, or he's not necessarily all that great when he's on the ball. I will say that since he does score pretty high up for both defensive and dominant center back, he probably is not involved very frequently, but when he gets involved on the ball, he's probably not that bad. Because one of the differences between the on-ball stuff between my dominant center back score and my ball-playing center back score is total number of on-ball actions, basically, like especially passes, progressive passes into the final third, stuff like that. So he's probably good in terms of completion percentages. So he can win the ball back, he can do stuff, and then he can start an attack, he can start build-up pretty well, but he might not be able to be the key cog in your build-up from the back, just because we don't know. If he doesn't play a ton of passes, we just don't know. How are you going to be under pressure constantly throughout a match when you're always getting the ball from the goalkeeper, from the right back or the left back, or a defensive midfielder, or something like that? But yeah, so that's kind of the thought process. I want to add him to a list as well because he shows up and I've talked about him for probably 5 minutes now. But yeah, and you can see here's Wang Shichi again. So he pops up as a defensive mid and as an advanced playmaker. And as we talked about at the beginning of the video, he was the first one to show up on the list for, being our playmaker, our central playmaker that we wanted to see. So he's got to be very well-rounded. So let's check that. I can have Wang Shichi, and I have my radar program. And so This is actually I have up on my GitHub. I have something similar up on my GitHub. I'll link that in my comments as well if you haven't seen that. That you can use Wyscout data to create your own radars. And so I'm doing this live. So once it's done, I'll go into my files and hopefully it will share the screen. It should. But basically we can see from his radar, Wang Shichi is very well-rounded. He is really good in terms of creative output. He's also really good in terms of an attacking output and progression too. He's pretty good. He carries the ball a lot. He accelerates at the ball, but basically he's a good carrier of the ball. He plays high up, and when you watch him, he's one player that I have watched a bit live, not live like in person, but that I've watched a bit of his videos. He plays really high up towards like the box, so he has less room to pass into the final third. That's not like a weakness for him or a hole in his game. I don't think that's just because he plays higher up. And when he gets the ball, he's carrying. He's not passing. He's one of the highest players up. So he's carrying it because there's nowhere to pass to. That's why we see here. So happy that he is able to have that, discrepancy between progression in terms of carries and passes, because it's inherent in him as a player that he is high up, and in the system that he plays in, that he's pretty high up. There's no one ahead of him to really pass to, with one or two players max. So he's carrying the ball into space. And that is something too that when you're going through and kind of finding players and stuff, you just explore the players, explore their teams, watch videos, get to know a little bit about. You don't need to become an expert on these players, but it's just fun to try to learn more about them. So you can spend a couple hours diving in more than just click a button and saying, oh, look at these players, here are the top 10 players, top U25 players in the league, right? It's you dive a little bit deeper, and you can spend a little bit of time and get to know 4, 5, 6 players that you go, okay, I really want to explore you further. So that's kind of that. I will say also I have other stuff. I've shared a lot of different things both today in the video as well as I know on my Twitter feed I share a lot. Here's one of the things. I already have this loaded because I do like him. I'm happy he showed up in all these things because I have found him. I've been watching him, and I think Wang Shichi is a very fun player to watch. He's very direct and attacking. He's good at facilitating play, both in possession as well as attacks. And you can see that here. Another component to this is I have a lot of different visuals that I make. So once I find different players, I'll go in and visualize some of their data to see, for an attacker, especially like Wang Shichi, what's your creation, what's your dribbling like, your shooting, especially shot assist, stuff like that. I have a lot of other things that I can visualize that I won't, because I'm running out of time for my screen sharing app to get my little person in the corner here. I only have 30-minute video, so I can't go too far beyond, nor do I think I should, since that could be like a 6-hour video. Honestly, I could probably make 6 hours of me just finding 15 players in a league. I have a problem, don't I? But yeah, so I think that this is probably it. Definitely ask any questions of me. I mean, my DMs on Twitter are always open. Add some comments to this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is just something that a method that I like to use. I kind of go through a couple of different code files I have to just play around with different filters to see who shows up. You can also create roll scores to that you're creating something static. It's not dynamic filters that you make. It's a very static one, and you're generating scores for players in a bunch of different positions to see who pops up. If the same players or similar players pop up that you found in other methods, those are probably players that not only are they interesting in a couple ways, they're probably pretty good too. And so take a look, look at some event data, go and watch videos, watch clips of them, especially watch full matches and just track that one player and see what are they doing in possession, out of possession. And if you look at a playmaker, how are they moving with the ball? What types of passes do they want to play? What are they good, bad at, stuff like that. And so that could then be the next step, right? And we looked at some radars too. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too long. This is the first video I'm making, so I'm not sure if the editing job is going to be bad or good or something, but I just wanted to get a first video down and just play with some data that I have a blast playing with at all times. It's just, you could spend hours looking into data, right? So this is one of the methods I use to kind of discover players in leagues. And it's just, it's fun to share. So hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll catch you for the next video. Bye, everybody.